Hey, my name is Jamie Aaron, and today we're going to have a little chat about gear. I'm going to talk about gear as an investment and the effect that Reverb.com has had on the price of gear. And I'll tell you the two pedals that I bought that if I had bought them with the intention of them being an investment, it would have been a pretty good deal. So when I first started playing guitar in the late 90s, I would go to Guitar Center, and Guitar Center in Denver, Colorado would have a wall full of vintage guitars. And even as a 12-year-old kid in 1999, it was very easy for me to just pull a 66 Strat off the wall or a 63 Tele off the wall. And at that point, those guitars were $6,000, $7,000, depending on the condition. But there was a plethora of them at the local Guitar Center. And within a year or two, they all just went away. And there was just a bunch of used guitars, from the 80s and maybe some 70s stuff. But why did that happen? The effect of eBay totally changed the used guitar market and the gear market, because now if somebody wanted to sell vintage gear, they didn't have to list it in the classifieds or their local Guitar Center and get that big cut that Guitar Center would take. Instead, they could sell it to a global market, which not only raised the value, but got rid of those instruments in the local stores in the same large numbers. Later, Reverb.com emerged and became the place for musicians to buy and sell gear. With its low selling fees, information about the gear itself, as well as history of the sale so people can see the value and where theirs fits in, it really became a useful tool for musicians to reach other musicians and sell gear. And unlike eBay, which sells everything, clothes and furniture and stamps, this is solely focused on gear, so it's a much better place for one-stop shopping for musicians. There is one downside of Reverb though, and that's the way it has encouraged inflation of prices in certain instances. 4 years ago, Joe Bonamassa had a garage sale at a rehearsal studio here in the LA area. He wanted to get rid of a bunch of gear that he had lying around in different storage facilities and warehouses and at his house. He actually did it for 2 years, 2015 and 2016. And I went in 2016 and I walked in, I got there pretty early. And by the time I got there, people were just leaving with handfuls of stuff. I was looking at the prices and the prices were incredibly low. He was just selling to get rid of stuff and get this gear into the hands of other people who would use it. And if you thought twice about anything, it was gone. So I was curious. How many of these people were buying all this stuff to use? How many people were looking at it as an opportunity? So I went on Reverb a couple days later and I saw a bunch of items listed that said formerly owned by Joe Bonamassa, and they were being sold for a lot higher prices than what these people picked it up for at his garage sale. Another incident, a year ago, Dan Strain of Danacaster Guitars announced that he would be ceasing operations and stop building guitars. And as soon as that happened, all the prices on the Danacaster guitars for sale on Reverb skyrocketed. These guitars, which had been selling on the used market and even new in retail stores for between $2,700, $3,000 in that range, all of a sudden were being sold for $5,000, $7,000, $10,000. Somebody even tried selling their Danacaster for $20,000. Since then, Danacaster has announced they will be selling their guitars exclusively through Instagram, continuing to build, and that's caused the prices to come down. You now see them for $3,000, $4,000. But it just goes to show when an item seems like the supply is limited or it's about to be a rare discontinued item, people take advantage to make a little bit of extra money or a lot of extra money. This also recently happened with Chase Bliss, who partnered with Zevex to make the Bliss Factory. They were selling this in a limited run of 1,000 pedals for $399. And this was actually partnered with Reverb to do the selling. Immediately, people bought these pedals for $399 and just turned around and listed them on Reverb for $750 to $1,000, which was not the intention of Chase Bliss or Zevex. It totally spiraled out of control. People were buying them and selling them before even receiving their order. Of course, since then, Chase Bliss announced they'd be building this pedal again in another run, and that's deflated the prices slightly. You see this kind of thing happening on Reverb if somebody is selling a piece of gear for way less than it's worth. I've seen things in my Reverb feed and I go, wow, that's a great deal. And then I see it sold, and then a few days later, I'll see the same item relisted by a different seller in a different part of the country. There are people that I think are just sharks looking around for those good deals. They'll buy it, hoping that they can sell it and make a profit. And if that's how somebody makes a living, that's fine. But it just shows you how people are using this app, not just to buy instruments for themselves, to play and enjoy and play music. I've seen this happen where somebody will even use the same photos from the previous seller and just use it in their own seller profile to sell that image. So now what you've been waiting for, let me talk about the two pedals that I bought last couple of years that have totally blown out of control in terms of the amount of money that they're worth. So I bought these pedals for one reason and one reason only, to make music, because I enjoy the sound of them and I wanted these pedals in my arsenal to use on live gigs and sessions and just to play for fun. I don't buy gear and buy pedals like I'd invest in the stock market. For me, gear is not an investment. If I buy a piece of gear and it happens to go up in value, great. So what are these two pedals? So the first one is the Ibanez TS10 Tube Screamer. So this was built between 1986 and 1990. The desirable ones were built in Japan, although also Taiwan in that time. Unlike the TS808 before it and the TS9, it has a little bit different of a look, very 80s. It's got a lot of plastic on it, and these weren't the most reliable. You can see the jacks here on the back, the way they were in the back, a lot of plastic, and it just would fall apart. So they weren't considered desirable for a very long time. Stevie Ray Vaughan used them, and not a lot of people know that, but in the late 80s, he would just use whatever Tube Screamer was the newest one. So he went from the 808 to the 9, eventually the 10. But a few years ago, John Mayer, who's a huge fan of Stevie Ray Vaughan, got the TS10 and put it on his board and uses it on all his projects. Now, I bought this at the end of 2016 for $150. And this pedal is mint condition when I bought it, not a scratch on it. It's the desirable Japanese version with the JRC 4558D chip. Sounds great, I love it. It does that Stevie Ray thing perfectly. And somebody recently sent me a text message, a buddy of mine, and said, hey, have you seen the price on these lately? And I said, no, I paid $150 for it. That's about what they were going for in 2016, $150, maybe $200. This was a decent deal. Look at them now, they're going for $300, $400. There's even one right now listed on Reverb in mint condition for $1,250, which is insane. Now you have other pedals like the JHS Bonsai and the King Tone Duelist that can do the TS10 thing. I wouldn't buy this for that price. Now, am I going to sell this and try to make a quick buck off of it? No, because I enjoy using it. I like it. I think it's cool, so I'm going to keep it. The other pedal that's really increased in value is the Analog Man King of Tone, a great dual overdrive pedal that can do a boost, an overdrive, and even a high gain distortion depending on how you set it with the internal dip switches. This is a great pedal. A lot of great players use them. Great overdrive tones. I use this pedal all the time. So when I bought this pedal in 2016, there was a 2-year waiting list with Analog Man for this pedal, which was selling for around $250. I saw this one on Reverb for $300, and for me, paying an extra $50 was worth it to have it now instead of having to wait a year and a half to 2 years to get it. That extra $50 meant I could have it in my hands within a few days. So I ordered it on Reverb, box, manual, all the goodies. Love it. I use it. I use it on my pedal board. I use it in sessions. I use it on live gigs. It's a great pedal. Over the last couple years, because of the limited number that Analog Man puts out and the high demand for the waiting list, these have gone up to where if you go on Reverb right now, they're $600, $750. That's a lot of money to spend on a single pedal that's still in production, even though it's limited numbers. Is it worth it? Is it worth paying $500 or $600 for one of these pedals that just a few years ago was selling for $200 or $300? Well, items can be valued at what the market is willing to show them for. So if people in the market are willing to pay that much, that's how much it's worth. But I think there's a problem with this, and that's that it's keeping gear out of the hands of working musicians, out of aspiring musicians, people who just want to play and have great tone. And sure, there are a lot of options and other ways to get great tone aside from these two pedals or pedals like a Klon. But the question is, are you buying pedals as an investment? So for me personally, I don't look on Reverb to buy pedals thinking they're going to go up in value or thinking I'll be able to put my kids through college based on a pedal purchase. I buy it because the amount that it's for sale for is worth it for me to buy to be able to use in real life to get the tones that I want. And that's what I think gear should be. They're tools, especially pedals, that we use on the job, we use to make music, and we use to have fun. So let me know, have you purchased any gear in the last couple of years that has really skyrocketed in value? Is there any gear that you think is going to go up in value? What's the best investment you've made on guitar gear, whether it's a guitar, an amp, or a pedal? Let me know in the comments below, and please click subscribe. I put guitar lesson videos, gear demos, and performances out every week, and I would love to hear what you have to say. Thanks for watching.